Good morning. What is our dream today? What is yet to be? What was beyond the imagination of Dr. King? And how do we need to reimagine it for today? My first impulse is to say, wake up. Wake up from dreaming. Wipe the tear gas from your eyes. See the cop get beat with the blue line flag. It was never about law and order. It was ever about white makes right. Traitors to the race are called traitors to the nation. Pledging to count the votes of black people transformed the whitest man in the world into a target for a lynch mob. For 4 years, the ugliness of America has been on display. Racism has been the skeleton in America's closet. But these pale, bleached bones of white supremacy have been released from their hiding place and are paraded down the street. And they have attacked our capital. We are currently in a state of civil war. The 50 state capitals have National Guard around them because there are threatened attacks today. And I'm glad the governors of both parties are recognizing the seriousness of this threat. As for me, I am weary. I am weak. I am worn. This is the 25th year in a row that I have preached on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In some ways, this is an easy sermon to write. You grab a few quotes, and there are lots to choose from. And I'm inspired. And I have hope. And I share that hope with others to continue marching towards that dream. But this year, the quotes feel hollow. They fall into the abyss of my heart. Going through quote after quote, the quote that I found most resonant this week was by one of King's philosophical rivals of the Black Power movement, Stokely Carmichael. He wrote, Dr. King's policy was, if you are nonviolent, if you suffer, your opponent will see your suffering and will be moved to change his heart. That's very good. He only made one false assumption. In order for nonviolence to work, your opponent must have a conscience. The United States has none. And I think of all the deaths of unarmed black men that we have seen over these past few years. They always were happening. We are now seeing them because everybody carries a camera on them at all times. And it's not true of all Americans, but it is true of too many of them. Not having a conscience. Defending the attack on the Capitol. There's no remorse amongst politicians who called to overturn an election that was tried in the courts and shown to be free and fair, yet they still objected because of the loss of white supremacy. How can we change the minds of people who cling to alternative facts, who nurture feelings of hatred, who insult people and then blame those same people for feeling insulted, who in the midst of a pandemic refuse to wear a mask? How can we appeal to the empathy of those who appear to have none? When I saw police escorting traitors out of the White House, my heart sunk. Shortly after many of these police had defended bravely the lives of our legislature, actual confrontation, somewhere the decision was made not to arrest these people here and there, but to let them walk out and let them cheer before the camera about their great triumphant day out storming the Capitol. And now we post their pictures online and say, can you find these people? In what world is this reality? On January 6th, we did not need to find these people. They found us. They struck at the heart of our nation. Over the next few days, only a small percentage have been arrested. And their charges tend to be minor things like criminal trespass. Formal charges of insurrection have not been made, and I'm not too confident that they will be. Most of the terrorists will return home to their neighborhoods which are also our neighborhoods, and feel justified and emboldened. But I also see that some are taking it seriously. National Guard troops have shut down D.C. It is necessary because we are in a state of civil war. Our nation is being attacked in a sense of guerrilla warfare that remains a current threat. Now I hear on right-wing TV they say, oh, look it, the left is creating a fascist police state. The disingenuousness of this, of declaring war and then complaining that we are defending ourselves against war. There's such a weird tendency in this country to pretend that this is normal. I used to be shocked by COVID's death. I mean, feel a visceral feeling when the numbers were reported. And now I have a numbness to the numbers. 4,000 died. And keep on dying almost every day since the first attack in this civil war. The mob is already being explained away. These are our neighbors. We should unify. We should let them retreat until they attack again. But we must never forget the harm that has been done. We cannot pretend that it is over. We are in the struggle for the hearts and minds of America. We cannot give up. But what to do? The broadcast of this sermon has the potential to reach billions. But it will probably reach about 100. And many who are listening to me today are already convinced of whatever opinion I have. This is where I can see the reassurance that many find in a belief in God. I am weak, I am weary, I am worn are part of a hymn, the favorite hymn of Dr. Martin Luther King. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. It helped him persevere. But I can't wait on the Lord. God has not fixed racism and war throughout the whole of human history. In fact, differing beliefs about God have often added fuel to the fire. I try, as a good Unitarian Universalist, to believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, but that is also hard to believe. The evidence is piling up against it. I want a hero to save me, but even the politicians I support let me down. Eleanor Holmes Norton wrote, "A lot of people are waiting for Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi to come back, but they are gone. We are it. It's up to you and me." This dream, this thing has to live in a multitude of people, and we have to keep it present in all our interactions. Chris Christopherson wrote a song about heroes. I'll read you the lyrics. There was a man named Mahatma Gandhi. He would not bow down. He would not fight. He knew the deal was down and dirty, and nothing could make it right. But he knew his duty and the price he had to pay. Just another holy man who tried to make a stand. My God, they killed him. Another man from Atlanta, Georgia, by the name of Martin Luther King. He shook the land like rolling thunder and made the bells of freedom ring today with a dream of beauty that they could not burn away. Just another holy man who dared to be a friend. My God, they killed him. The only Son of God Almighty, the Holy One named Jesus Christ, healed the lame and fed the hungry, and for his love they took his life away. On the road to glory where the story never ends, just the Holy Son of Man will never understand. My God, they killed him. The song reveals it has never been easy. Good is always met with evil. All our best have been shot down. The tale is never ending. Always thwarted, but somehow continuing. We look at these people, these historical titans of justice, who are like giant oaks and giant redwoods. But even the staunchest, strongest tree dies or gets cut down. But what we each have in common is that each of us is a seed. We may or may not grow to the tallest tree. We may have little faith, as small as a mustard seed. One tree can be cut down, but we need to be a forest. A forest like aspen trees, who are not the biggest forest in the woods, but they connect to one another with the roots. And so that they're a living organism, and they realize their connection. Seeds get sown, and we never know where they might grow. We have been entrusted with the seeds of hope and humanity. We have been entrusted with the seeds of love and liberty. We have been entrusted with the seeds of generosity and justice. We have been entrusted with the seeds of peace and prosperity. Sometimes, in times of need, the seeds themselves are enough to feed us. Corn on the cob, beans and rice and nuts and berries. All are seeds that can sustain us. But we must always save some seed for the future. We must plant them. We must give them away to an uncertain future. If we plant a redwood seed today, we will have died, and 100 generations of our family will have died before that tree gets to its full strength. And we have to just accept the fact that many of the seeds will fail. Jesus knew this. He spoke to them in parables, saying, "Behold, a sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seed fell by the wayside, and the birds came and devoured them. Some fell on the stony places where they did not have much earth, and they immediately sprang up, but because they had no depth of earth, when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns that choked them. But others fell on good ground and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. This parable has some hard truths. Some seed is wasted. Some people choose to live on the wayside where every good seed is devoured before it can grow. You give them truth, but the lies fly faster, swooping down and cavorting and distorting whatever you say. Do not focus on the wayside unless you are prepared to do hard work first. Before any seed can be planted there, the path must be plowed, destroyed, until it becomes less resistant. This requires personal and painful interactions. Most of us do not have the temperament for that. My own plow is made of aluminum foil. It's good for keeping things warm, keeping other things from burning, but it's very bad for plowing. If I tried to plow into the hardened hearts, I'd not break ground. I'd only destroy myself. But a few of you might be made for that fight. You may never plant seeds of hope, but you might prepare someone to hear them through long and difficult conversations that churn the soul. Many people are like shallow soil. Passions come and go. It was a glorious flowering of the protest all around, oftentimes in very white rural communities after the tragedy of George Floyd. But where are those people now? How many of those passions took root? And how many other passions have moved on to whatever is the new topic of the day? In upstate New York, between Rochester and Niagara, the soil is very stony. And people over the years struggled to grow anything, and before they could grow anything had to dig the field stones and the cobblestones out of the ground and made their houses out of them. These obstacles to good growth and good seed somehow were transformed into homes and shelters for people. The cobblestone district in western New York settles around a small town called Childs. And the biggest building in that small town is a Universalist church built in 1834. The congregation no longer exists. But the building is now a museum to all the things made out of cobblestone in that very, very poor soil place. And the words, "God is love," above the doorway is preserved not by a church, but by a historical society. It is a public declaration of an idea. So if you find yourself in stony soil where not much can grow, use your imagination to build. And some of us feel like we are trying to grow among thorns. Day after day, we are confronted by people who refuse to wear a mask. This past year, I saw a man at the Harris Teeter grocery store. He was not wearing a mask, but he had a pistol, open carry, on his hip. I don't know what danger he intended to confront in the grocery store, or if he was such a good shot that he could wing a virus in the air from 50 feet. But it's sad. a thorn that is trying to intimidate each of us. This free-floating rage which surround us. His rage engendered a rage in myself which I don't like to feel. Some of this rage is unlawful and must be weeded out. Some of it is lawful but immoral, and we must make laws to prevent it. In the midst of this crisis, I take a step back. And I take a step back and see that the will of the majority in the last election was upheld. Upheld by people who voted in the minority. But when given the opportunity to install minority rule and apartheid in this nation, backed down. They said no. They stood up to the voices that said, an elite shall run this country. Even though some were complicit in this revolution, in this current civil war, and they are still active members currently in retreat, plotting their next move. We must remember we outnumber them and that we can't ignore them. Because when we don't call them out on their non-democratic, small d, non-egalitarian impulses, these impulses grow. So we need to call them out. We need to find out which police are on our side. Just as in the day, we had to figure out if General Lee was a Union soldier or not. And as the traitor he was, he chose the other side. Our police forces are divided. We saw it this weekend. We saw it this past week. We saw it when some were fighting bravely while their comrades were taking selfies with the terrorists in another hall. We need to help good cops have the strength to weed out bad cops. We need to have their back because they have been in this untenable position for years. Each of us need to stand up and be counted. Because there is more of us, and we need to let people know that there is more of us. They tried to install minority rule in this country. They did this because they realized that their ideas are falling out of favor. It was a desperate move by desperate people, and we must continue to give them less credence and search for the voices of America that want America to live up to its creed. All are created equal, and all should have equal say. Our say is continually growing, but we must continue sowing the seeds of hope and humanity, the seeds of love and liberty, the seeds of generosity and justice, the seeds of peace and prosperity. We must not grow silent as the voices of discord grow larger. Let us press on to bring good things to people. Some will never hear, but there is much good soil out there. It's up to us to encourage and make the voices of hope louder than those of fear. We can't ignore the threat, but we can't be on the defense. We must go on the offense with the positivity, with the hope, with the vision of peace. And to remind people when they feel forgotten that they got the vaccine in their rural area precisely because there was a coordinated government effort to do this. Government is here to help the people. It is not the problem. Government is only a problem by those who run on the principle that government is bad and then when elected set out to prove it. But we, the people, are in the control. We, the people, the words in the preamble of the Constitution. In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and provide for the common defense and promote the general welfare. My goodness, welfare is right there in our Constitution. Opening lines. I don't know why people are against welfare. That's what government's for. To promote the general welfare. The Constitution of the United States was under attack, and it has been in the past. It wasn't perfect. It never will be perfect. The goal is to form a more perfect nation, to do better than we have in the past, and know that the solutions we come up will be not enough, and the next generation will have to do better than us. In a sermon in Boston in 1858, Unitarian abolitionist minister stated that democracy is direct self-government over all the people, by all the people, for the people. William Herndon, Abraham Lincoln's law partner, saw this speech and bought copies of the speech and brought him back to Illinois to his friend, who highlighted those passages in pencil. And he would repurpose those words for his Gettysburg Address. We must repurpose those words in our lives today and make sure they survive this civil war, and that this nation, of the people, by the people, and for the people, will stand for future generations to protect. May we bless and be blessed.
Thank you, Charlie.